Hello everyone, this is Alonzo. Want to know how to get your first cloud job? Then please register for our webinar. We'll teach you everything that you need to know and answer your questions along the way. Hope to see you there. Hello everyone, this is Alonzo. Want to know how to get your first cloud job? Then please register for our webinar. We'll teach you everything that you need to know and answer your questions along the way. Hope to see you there.
My name is Richard Furr, and I can say I am cloud hired.
That yes, come and join and get cloud hired. I'm cloud hired.
I'm cloud hired.
I'm cloud hired.
Hey, Go Cloud Architect family. I'm cloud hired.
So, I'm cloud hired, guys.
So I'll just say I'm cloud hired.
I'm cloud hired.
I'm cloud hired thanks to Go Cloud Architects.
It worked for me, and now I'm cloud hired.
Because of Google Architect program, I am cloud hired. See!
I am cloud hired. Thank you, Mike and the GlowCloud team.
right, welcome everybody to another Cloud Computing Career Q&A session from us at Go Cloud Careers. My name is Chris Johnson. I'm the Chief Operating Officer, joined by Mike Gibbs, our founder and CEO. And we're here to answer any questions that you have about the cloud computing careers, whether it be the cloud architect career, cloud engineer career, whether you want to know what to learn to become a cloud architect, what type of cloud architect training you need, what type of cloud engineer training you need, any questions that you have about the cloud architect job or any cloud computing job. We want to make sure that you get your questions answered. And so we come here at least once a week to answer your questions. Now you need to actually ask us your questions. And that is the biggest, the most difficult thing that we have when we do these things is people are a little shy to begin with. So I'm going to go ahead and call all of you out and say, don't be shy. Ask us your questions, whether you're on LinkedIn or you're on YouTube. Ask us your questions so that we can help you. So while we wait for some questions to come in, I want to see if Mike's got anything to say.
Sure. Welcome, everyone. I'm so happy to have you here. I'm the founder and CEO of Go Cloud Careers, as many as you know, and I've been in this tech industry, wow, for over 25 years. In fact, I've been a technical architect, an enterprise architect, a network architect, business architect, you name it. I've taken every architecture role, and I've loved all of them. And prior to that, I did a little stint in network engineering, which I also loved, but I prefer architecture so much more. For more than 2 decades, I've helped people get their first technology job or get promoted in tech, negotiate a $50,000 or $100,000 raise, and get any job they've ever desired. Because here's the thing. If you dream it and you can see it in your mind, and then you get the right build the right plan, get the appropriate training, get the appropriate coaching, there's nothing you can't achieve in your life. It doesn't matter what your goals actually are, you can do it all. And the key is when you know how to get there, it's much easier to get there. I'd like most people to consider, how would you drive to a place in California? Let's say you live in Florida, if you didn't have a map. Sure, you'd know to go west, but would you end up in San Diego, Coronado Island, San Francisco? Would you end up in wine country? How would you get someplace where you had no idea how to go? Here's what would happen. You'd wander around for a long time. You'd be stopping at gas stations or 7-Elevens and getting bad guidance from people that really don't know. And by the time you got there 15 years later, you'd be old, gray, most likely, and tired. Or you could get a map and plot your course or put a GPS in your car. And that's why I'm here. When I started my career, I did something different. All my peers were working on 50 different certifications. They were all, I hear this is good. 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 And you know what I did? I got my first job by asking 50 recruiters what they wanted. After that, as soon as I got my first job, I said to my manager, I said, can I go talk to the VP? And he's like, why do you want to talk to the VP? I said, I want to ask him what's his definition of the world's greatest network architect so that I know that I can become that. And how am I going to know it if I don't ask? My manager called him, set up a meeting with me. The VP told me everything to learn. 6 months later, I was the lead architect on the team. Within 2 years, I was a principal architect, a job that wanted 15 years experience that paid triple that my first job had. And I want that for you. And that's because I asked someone. Most people ask one of their peers. They don't know. It's like stopping at gas stations and asking for directions. That doesn't work. You might find somebody that's good. You might get lost along the way. So it's all about who you ask, when you ask. And I want the best for every last one of you. I grew up with nothing. I had 3 jobs to pay for college. I couldn't afford even to go to lunch with the firefighters that I worked with because I was busy paying my tuition, which doesn't sound like much now, but I was paying $8,000 a year back in 1991, which is like $20,000 today. And I paid it all while I went to school from working. So it was tough for me. I had 3 jobs and, I wanted to get there. I never wanted to live like that again. So I learned what to do, how to do it. And that's why I'm here for you. Currently I've got students working at Amazon, Apple, Cisco, incredible company there, IBM, Google, Accenture, Deloitte, KPMG, Zscaler, Palo Alto Systems, Deloitte, Barclays Bank, JP Morgan Chase, and all the most elite companies in the world my graduates are working at. And I want to help you build the roadmap. So tell me the career that you desire so I can help you get there. If you're looking for tips for success in building your career, I'll tell you too. I've worked with many people that were here and I've gotten them here, and I can do the same for you. But I can't help you if I don't know what your questions are. I don't know what your goals are. It's not what you did yesterday. That's meaningless. It's not what you ate for dinner yesterday. That's also meaningless. It's not your history. It's the actions you take today that will get you to where you want to go tomorrow. So please ask your questions. We can help you. Don't be shy. You know, Chris, what does it cost to book an appointment with me, and how long is it for to actually get one?
Yeah, so it's $1,200 an hour to speak to you. I'm a little bit less, but yeah, it takes quite a while. I think it's either 16 or 17 weeks right now to get you scheduled. So, like Mike said, don't be shy. Ask us your questions. We've got a couple of questions to start things off, and but again, we're here absolutely free to answer your questions. Alonzo will be joining us here in a little bit, probably. He's there in the chat box right now. He's trying to multitask right now. So, but between me, Mike, and Alonzo, you know, you've got over 75 years of experience that we want to help you. We want to use that experience to help you, and we can do that by answering your questions. So, before we get to the questions, I want to share a couple of resources. And if Tyrone from our team will help me out by putting these in the chat box and putting some banners up on the screen, we've got a very important resource. So we're talking about tech careers. A lot of people focus on the tech for tech careers. Well, guess what? Tech skills aren't enough to be successful in today's tech career. So we've got a free guide on why tech skills aren't enough, completely free to you, from me, Mike, and Alonzo, from our experience, to explain why tech skills are not enough to have a successful career. Yes, you can have a career. Yes, you can have a job, but it is not going to be the most successful that you can be. And at the end of the day, that's what we want. We want you, and you want, hopefully, to be the best that you can possibly be. So get this free resource to help you get started in the right direction. Also, if you're interested in becoming an architect, a cloud architect, solution architect, enterprise architect, we also have another free resource for you on how to get your first cloud architect job. That is another completely free resource for you. Take advantage of that directly from Mike, the person that did it. He came with no experience, and within, I believe, 2 years, you were an enterprise architect. And
absolutely.
So many of our students have followed the same formula and the same path with us. And we've got we cover that in that free guide for you. So get those free resources and get started on the right path. So let's get to some of these questions over here.
We've got some good ones.
Yeah, so we've got, I'm going to go in order so I don't get lost. There was one from Arthur. Oh, no, here we go. From King Leo first. How often do you guys do the meetup summits? I may not be able to attend the one in October. So King Leo, the one in October is actually our first official summit or conference, if you will. And that will be October 14th and 15th. If you arrive on the 13th, Friday the 13th, I guess. It's third, but the event itself will be October 14th and 15th there in Orlando. This will be the first one. Currently, we're taking it a step at a time. Look forward to doing more of them. We hope to do more of them, but we don't have a cadence or a schedule or anything like that for future ones. Now, if you're in our program, we've got unofficial ones happening all the time, whether it's Atlanta, Dallas, Houston, Washington, D.C. Here, we did one here in Orlando. We've done one in Tampa. They've done them in San Francisco, Toronto, New Delhi, Mumbai. I think they've done them in London too. But those are our students getting together and having meetups and going bowling and going out to eat, going to Top Golf, going to the pub, and having a good old time. So those are happening all the time. I have no control over those. I just tell them they got to give me pictures if they do it. So good question there, King Leo. So the one in October will be our first one, and we'll keep everyone updated as the future comes. Oh, do what?
I was going to actually suggest Angel Mercado's because he's in a very unique position to start with, but we can go to the next one.
We'll go
Angel
with
Mercado.
first.
You just got your CCIE, and what do I recommend next? Well, congratulations, Angel. My CCIE number is 7417, back when it was this miserable 2-day exam. Most people know that I'm not a big fan of certifications because the reality is no certification other than the CCIE actually proves any degree of competency or will get you a job. Not true for the CCIE. The CCIE is an extraordinarily good certification. You're not faking your way through that by memorizing questions and answers to a test that you bought, and you're not having somebody take the exam for you. So congratulations. Here's the thing, and I'll tell you how I tripled my salary from my CCIE to where I ended up as an enterprise architect at Cisco. I want you to download the free guide to why tech skills are not enough. See, our tech skills in networking, and you haven't really told me where you want to go. So I'd like to know that so I can truly guide you. I have an extreme passion for networking people. But I want you to realize this. Your networking skills will get you this far. Let's say the average CCIE salary is about $175,000 a year. The average salary of somebody with business acumen is $558,000 a year, according to salary.com. Emotional intelligence to an average person can raise their salary about $30,000, but you can be $60,000 to $100,000 when we're talking in technology. So right now you've got your great networking skills. That's your foundation. To be able to rise in your career, if you develop your business acumen, either through taking a tech leadership program like we have, or by getting an MBA, it's going to make you stand out and stand out far. If you improve your sales skills, you'll be able to get hired in any economy, and you can start moving into, if you're not already there, into network architect roles. Why do I love network architect roles? Because in a good economy, people hire us because we generate money. In a bad economy, we don't get laid off. We also can't really get outsourced because we need to be client-facing. So I would say work on your tech skills, work on your sales skills, work on your leadership skills, and work on your business acumen. And that can get you farther than you've ever imagined, either as a network architect, an enterprise architect. You may be one of the people that's been a CCIE that wants to move into a global account manager type position at Cisco, which is another fantastic role. We can also move in the product marketing side or product development side. There's a lot of things. So Angel, tell us what you'd like to do, and we'll give you a path on how to get there. But I'll tell you this, once you've got a CCIE, stop doing certifications. You've already got the king and the queen of all certifications out there. Nothing else compares. That means you're already competent in tech. So let's work on your other skills. But tell me what your goals are, and I'll really help you whether you want to be a network architect, enterprise architect. But congratulations, that's a tough exam. It's really hard to do. I remember when I did mine 20-some years ago, and it changed my life almost every night. I was in California, in San Jose, and I remember the first day, there were 20 of us in the room, and when I came back on the second day, there were 2 of us left. They asked us to do a second design on the second day, and then they sent us to lunch. And in those days, they used to break your thing and make you put it back together. When I came back, the two of us were there. One was left and sent home, and I was there. And I remember it like yesterday. I passed that exam. And in those days, the CCIE was, there were none of us out there. The guy says to me, "Go make some money. Congratulations, you passed." And I instantly went to Wall Street. And then after that, I went and worked on my business acumen, and that changed my life forever. So congratulations, super, super, super exciting. And let us know what you'd like to do. We can give you there. But as a general rule, increase your business acumen, your leadership skills, your sales skills, executive presence, and emotional intelligence, and you'll triple your salary over several years.
Right. So let's go with the question from Arthur. How much knowledge of software architecture is useful for a cloud architect role?
Well, Arthur, I want you to think about what an architect is, a cloud architect. The cloud is nothing more than somebody else's network and data center. They come up with a bunch of fancy names to say it, but it's just someone else. So what you really need to know is networking and data center technologies. So First, learn the network and the load balance and the data center. Then learn the cloud, which is the virtualized version of the network and the data center. Then learn networking. Then learn security. Then learn leadership. Then learn sales. Then learn communication skills. Then learn executive presence, emotional intelligence, stakeholder management, business acumen. They're the skills for the job. How much software architecture knowledge? That's what an application architect is for. And that's why a cloud architect will always consult an application architect for their cloud architecture design. Now, does this mean you shouldn't know how applications work? No, of course you should. You should have some knowledge of APIs, for example, and how they work. You should understand the difference between a microservices application and a monolithic application. You should understand which use case is better for which. And you should understand the structures and the way applications communicate with each other. But that's somebody else's career. That's why we have application architects. I got a friend, Angelo, who was a great application architect. He came to me and I turned him into into an enterprise architect. Lohit came to me as an application developer and we turned him into an application architect by giving him the leadership, the skills, the sales skills, the executive presence, the business acumen to take his knowledge in the software side and turn him into an architecture. But, a network architect has very different networking knowledge than a cloud architect, much deeper. The security architect needs to know the security much greater than the cloud architect because it's a specialty field. And the application architect is coming from someone with a software background. We're not application architects. There's much more networking and data center and security with what we do. Maybe 5% of what we do is related to application architecture. The rest of that is there. But if you're really good cloud architect, if you're really good enterprise architect, you work in a team, you lead the team. And in every architecture you design, you put together an application architect, a security architect, an IAM architect, a network architect, a big data architect. And a lot of what we do is coordinate. We're kind of like the quarterback of the care, where we coordinate all the plays, just like an internal medicine doctor is. That's what we do as a cloud architect. So don't go heavy on the application architecture side. Keep it to what we deal with. The cloud is somebody else's network and data center.
All right. Let's see. Next, Nathaniel asks, what are your thoughts on the Salesforce Architect certifications?
Nathaniel, I don't think any of these certifications is very meaningful. I think you need and I don't know what you're trying to design to get it. If you want to be a Salesforce architect, for example, I'll tell you this right now. There's no architecture training out there, there's no architecture certification that has anything to do with architecture. Wait, what? No architecture certification other than TOGAF has anything to do with architecture. An AWS Solution Architect certification teaches you the name of an AWS service and how to configure that. Guess what architects don't do? Use the names of AWS services with their clients or configure anything. We design it, present it, and sell it. So all the AWS certifications that are related to architecture have nothing to do with it. How about the Azure certifications? Name of a service and how to configure it. How about a Google certification? Name of a service and how to configure it. So they should rename all these certifications cloud admin certifications or Salesforce admin certifications. They're ready to give you those super junior level jobs that you would get like in a help desk or admin person. Now, if you want to be an architect, I want you to understand the architecture process, and I'm going to show you why these certifications won't do anything for you. But once you learn to be an architect, if you want to work in Salesforce, sure, do it after the fact because it'll get you an interview. Here's the architecture process, Nathaniel. First thing we got to do is go work with our clients. And we got to ask them about their vision for their company in the future. Their vision. And we have to look at where they are now and where they want to go. And we have to do a gap analysis and help build a roadmap. The next thing that we need to do is go ask the executives and other key stakeholders, how does your business operate today? And we need to map out all those processes. How does sales occur? How does marketing occur? How will the customer journey occur? What are all the routes to revenue? Once we map that out, we ask the customer how they want that stuff to work in the future business architecture. And we've got to go design that with them. And then we need to do a gap analysis to say, here's your starting state and here's your end state. When we get beyond that, the next thing we need to do is look at their data. Data is an asset, right? So we got to look at how they use data right now, how they desire to use data in the future, opportunities to enhance the business using data. So We've got to do that. We've got to baseline their data architecture. We've got to come up with the future architecture, create a gap analysis, and determine the difference. Now, when we're done that, we got to go look at their technology platforms. What networking platforms are they using? What data center platforms are they using? What cloud platforms are they using? What applications are they using? Well, how's their security environment look like? What's their network environment look like? We've got to write all that down, document it, baseline it, draw it up, and plan the future technology architecture that's going to support the way they want the business to operate in the future based upon the vision of the company in the future. Now, when we're done that, now we start looking for specific technologies to go solve that problem. For example, let's say we have a virtual machine that we need. Let's say we need 10,000 virtual machines. If it's in the data center, we'd probably use a VMware virtual machine or a KVM virtual machine or a Citrix virtual machine. If it's in AWS, it'll be called an EC2 instance, and we match up processor cores and DRAM. If it's on Google, they call it a compute engine instance. It's the same thing. If it's on Azure, it's a virtual machine. So now we're going to map them. And we got to create the little building blocks for each step along the way. Now, after this, we have to build the implementation plan. How many people do we need? What level of domain expertise? Do we need transition architectures? Meaning, can we do it all in a big bang? Do we need steps along the way? From there, we got to go deal with all of our stakeholders and make sure they're interested and engaged, because otherwise the project will fail. Then we need to work with a governance team to manage the entire process. Now, of course, we're going to have to sell the architecture. We're going to have to present it to the client. And then when we're done with that, we're going to have to negotiate a deal. Zero of this is covered in the Salesforce Architect certification or an AWS certification or an Azure certification. So what I would say, Nathaniel Sosa, is learn the technology, not the way they teach it in these certifications, because it's not going to help you. They teach you how to configure it, but I need you to understand how it works. That's the key, how it works. You know, if you go to the AWS website and they tell you how cool an H instance is, and then you look at the processor architecture and you see that it's a 7-year-old processor, it doesn't matter what they tell you in the fluff, you know how it works. So what I would say is focus on the underlying technology and how it works. And then when you're done, get 2 to 3 certifications. I actually know you by name, so I know you've got the goal of being a cloud architect. So I'd say get 1 certification. Azure Solutions Architect Expert, AWS Solutions Architect Professional, Google Professional Cloud Architect. I probably wouldn't do the Salesforce Architect one. And realize that's not going to teach you any what you need to know, but it's going to help you get an interview, and I love it for that. I might get a networking certification like a CCNP. I might get a security certification like a CISSP based upon you have a greater interest in networking versus security. And I'd consider getting a TOGAF. But I wouldn't do any other certifications other than that. Because you got to remember, as an architect, we're more of an executive. And I'll tell you what happened to me when I was at Cisco. One of the VPs at Cisco said, Mike, I would like you to remove the CCIE, the CCDP, which is a design certification, and the CISSP from your business cards. And I said, why? And he said, do you want to be seen as a techie, or do you want to be seen as the executive that can help all these businesses improve their financial performance? And I said, I want to be seen as the second. He said, Mike, I love that you did the CCE. I love that you're the most technical person on the team. You can still keep it on your resume. He said, but for this job, where all you're going to do is build business councils of CEOs and CFOs and CIOs, and you're going to be designing architecture for the industry, you're going to be presenting at conferences, you're going to be published in magazines every day, I need you to be an executive, not a techie. So don't do too many techie things, and you're going to be great. But learn how it works and become a master of design. Great question there, Nathaniel.
Right. So our next question is from Elvis. I'm going to start this one off with, and Tyrone helped me out with this. I'm going to start this one off with sign up for our webinar tomorrow. But Elvis asked, Cloud Security Architect Roadmap.
Elvis, what
sign up for our webinar tomorrow. We'll go into very much depth about this.
Elvis will go into deep depth about it tomorrow. All the things you need to learn. And you can do it, I promise you. I've gotten lots of people called security architect jobs and cloud architect jobs that have never worked in tech in less than a year. And it's all about learning the right things. So you really need to learn the cloud. And that means networking and data center concepts. And then you need to master security. Now, when we're dealing with security, for the most part, we're going to be dealing with enterprise security tools, not the cloud's tools. So we're going to be dealing with next generation firewalls, and you need to understand how they work so you can design them into things. Even though next generation firewalls have included intrusion detection and intrusion prevention systems, we may use them as well for additional information logging and just additional backup. You need to understand packet filtering and how and where it could be used. You need to understand identity and access management strategies, not the cloud stuff, but how the cloud stuff integrates with Active Directory and other more serious platforms. You need to understand how to find the gaps in the employees of the organization and how to train them as part of the process against things like anti-phishing, anti-social engineering, anti-malware. You'll have to get good at demilitarized zone design. You'll have to get good at designing zero trust architectures. You'll have to get good at understanding which encryption strategy to use when and where, whether it be encrypting the network or it be encrypting the storage. It wouldn't hurt if you learned how to micro-segment the systems. For example, in the data center, we can do a lot. In a cloud, we might create 1,000 different VPCs and create VPC peering between them because we lose a lot of the security functions on the cloud that we naturally have. You also are going to have to understand the security frameworks. NIST is one of them, for example, that would be good to use, and how to use which one and how to map the challenges and the solutions to these frameworks. You're also going to have to learn how to design a security policy. You're also going to have to understand SIEM or security event monitoring systems, data loss prevention strategies. Ideally, you'll know how to work with penetration testers or ethical hackers so they can find the vulnerabilities and you can design a solution that's really around them. You'll have to understand about vulnerability management strategies and how they can be implemented by the people that actually do these things. And it's all about designing security architectures. But we covered the tech part. The big key to remember is an architect isn't really a techie position. We're the bridge between the organization's executives and the engineers that actually build this. And that means you need to be able to speak and communicate to executives. That means CXO relevancy. It means you're going to be leading large teams of engineers and architects for your design. So you're going to need to get good leadership skills. It also means you're going to have to sell your designs, both to stakeholders, sell your design to the customer, because if they don't buy our stuff, we don't keep our jobs very long because we're in a sales position. It also means when you get back from the customer and they've got about $1 billion security problem, you're going to have to build a team of people that can help you. So you're going to have to sell people to actually want to work for you. You're going to have to learn to negotiate with stakeholders and negotiate deals. You'll have to learn how to give really big, good presentations at conferences, for example, as well as your interview to even get hired is going to be a presentation. And you're going to have to learn ROI modeling and the such. We teach all this in our architect programs, but these are the skills of the architect. But if you do this, Elvis, and you learn this, you will become an incredible architect. You will have a job all the time. You won't have a problem finding a job because there's so few people that actually have this blend of skills. So I got to tell you, the architect job is the best job I've ever had. I absolutely loved it. I've done a lot of security work in my life, and that's really the roadmap. But come on Thursday, come to the free How to Get Your First Job Architect Job webinar. We'll go over all the things that you need to know and get very detailed in it for you, because I want you to have the best career. Great question, Elvis, and thank you for asking the question, and feel free to ask more.
All right, so our next question. I am a 47-year-old man and I'm a business analyst with payment domain background. Can I move to cloud career at this age? If yes, how? Please suggest. So
of course you can.
I'm going to put a link for a video or two in the chat box here for you, and I'll let Mike answer.
Yeah, so 47 is young. We recently took a 60-year-old and got him his first cloud security architect job. We got a 63-year-old a job. It has nothing to do with your age. It has nothing to do with what you used to do. It has everything to do with the actions you take today. 47 is pretty darn young. And the reality is I work with people that are young and I work with people that are older. It's 10 times easier for me to get you a job in your 40s than it is in your 20s. Now, I've gotten people like Daniel Boso, a great cloud architect job, and he didn't even graduate high school at JP Morgan Chase because we gave him the right training. And I've also gotten 60-year-olds. It's not your age. It's not your background. It has nothing to do with it. as long as you can do the job. So come to the webinar on Thursday and we'll tell you the exact steps. And also, if you desire to be a cloud architect, also download the free guide, How to Become a Cloud Architect, and we'll tell you step by step. Now, Damala, you didn't tell me what cloud career you want, though. And that's the key. Because every one of these jobs are the same. It's not like you can take a course and learn SysOps, which is maintenance, DevOps, which is automation of software releases, and become a solution architect in the same training. Because that would be like saying you can go to the same course and become a doctor, a lawyer, and an airplane pilot. It's insanity. Now, I know there's people that are doing that, but we retrain their people every single day of the week because these are very specific jobs. So what I really need you to figure out is which job you'd like. Would you like to be the person behind the computer all day that codes and configures? That's a cloud engineer. Would you be the person that really likes to take software releases and automate them and deal with infrastructure as code all day? That's DevOps engineer, and that's a fine career too. Would you like to be an architect like me, who designs, presents, and sells a solution to a customer to improve the business performance? That's another cloud career. Would you like to be a cloud networking person? It's a different set of skills. A cloud security person, it's a different set of skills. Now, I'll tell you one thing. Engineering is going to be the lowest paying of all these careers. The closer you are to the tech, the less money you're going to earn. The closer you are to the business, the more money you're going to earn. But none of that matters if you're not happy. The only thing that matters is that you're happy. And that's what I want from you, because you can't do a job that doesn't make you happy. Hope I answered your question there. Come to the free webinar tomorrow. Download the free architect job guide if that's your career. If you desire a different career, please tell us and we will help you get there. Pawan Kumar, I see you just showed up in the chat box. Pawan, it was an honor to work with you. We're so happy you got your new architect job, and I am so thrilled to see you here. So Pawan, so nice to see you.
All right, and I put a couple of links there in the chat box. I put a link to our live stream with Robert Welch about his experience as it relates to the age. I also put a link to the Does Age Matter video in the chat box as well. So make sure to take a look at those when you have the opportunity. Let's see. Talvan's got a good question. I'll save it for later. It's not necessarily related to careers. That's why I'm going to save it. Okay, Jeremiah says, I love the security part of IT and want to see where I could fit in. Would you advise I go for all this cloud security certification in order to get into IT? That's a good question, because this gets to the heart of the problem that we see so many people have, is that they don't know how to break into this field, and so they try to figure it out. So I'm glad that you asked this question, Jeremiah. Great question.
So Jeremiah, I think security is wonderful. But first we have to figure out whether you want to do defensive security or offensive security, and I'll describe the difference. Defensive security is where you help an organization protect themselves by either being an architect and designing their security for them, or an engineer who builds it. Offensive security is when someone pays you to break into their systems. They pay you to be a hacker so you can identify weaknesses. Now, defensive security versus offensive security are very different training. So the first thing we need to do is figure it out. The next thing I want you to realize is what certifications really are. They're like putting a cherry on top of a sundae. If you've eaten a sundae, and it's like putting a pretty bow on a box that has a nice gift in it. If you take a certification, the reality is you're not going to learn anything related to security. You will learn how to pass a certification. So you're going to have to learn security. And you're going to have to find someone that's good at coaching security. Now, I don't want you to get 20 or 30 certifications either. I wouldn't waste my time on a Security Plus from CompTIA unless you want to work for the US government. To work for the US government, they love the CompTIA Security Plus. To work for everybody else, it's just not worth that much. Now, there are security certifications that will help you, like a CISSP, which will make you stand out leaps and bounds if you want to do a security architecture job. There are also certifications like an offensive security professional or a CEH master, not the base CEH, that are very good for penetration testers or ethical hackers. And that one, the master, we actually have to do an exam. You will actually learn security in it. But the majority of the certifications are not there. So I want you to view it this way. Here's how I tell people how to do certifications. First, learn the technology. Then get the certification. For example, I can interview, and I've done it, 1,000 AWS certified people, and I can ask them what is cloud computing, and none of them will know. I can ask them to describe an EC2 instance, and out of the 1,000, none will even know that it's a virtual machine, and you can't design what you don't understand. In AWS, Azure, and Google, they tell you block storage is fast, fast, fast. Now, I can buy a 19 million IOPS RAID card in my server. The fastest block storage I can get is 250,000, so 1/80th of the speed. It's not fast at all. But what happens is the certifications are really designed to help people sell stuff for a certain company by only showing them the cool stuff and not showing them the weaknesses of anything. So get good security training. Read good security information. Now, if you tell me, Jeremiah, which you want to do, offensive or defensive, engineering versus architecture, then I can actually build you a plan and tell you exactly what to learn. And I'd love to do so. But I wouldn't use certifications as a means of training. And I'll give you the example of why not. 25 years ago, and I know it sounds crazy, but it was 25 years ago, I was practicing internal medicine. And I wanted to work in networking. So I did what everybody did, which was the hugest mistake, which is one of the reasons I've been helping people for 20 years. I got certified. So I called my computer school, and they said, for networking, you need this Microsoft certified systems engineer. I paid $5,000 for this ridiculous 1-week boot camp. It was in class Monday through Friday. At the end of the week, I passed all 4 exams. It was done. Or 5 exams. I think it was 5 exams. Then when nobody was interested in me, I called that company, and they said, you need a CCNA. Now, the CCNA was thankfully an easy exam, so I did it on my own. When nobody had any interest to hire me with the CCNA, I called the computer school, and they said, you need a CCNP, Mike. So back in 1998 or something like crazy like that, 99, I can't remember, I took a 10-day, $11,000 CCNP boot camp. They had 4 exams, and I passed them all inside of the 2 weeks. Now I went back. You know who was interested in me? Nobody. So I called another school, and they said, well, Mike, you need a CCDA and a CCDP. So guess what? I spent more money, almost another 10 grand, and passed them too. So now I'm 25 grand in silly certification training. I have 3 professional certifications, 3 associate certifications, and I sent out 5 resumes. And every last one got rejected, and one of them called me back. They said, Mike, you got a really impressive resume. And if I was looking for someone to take care of my staff when they got sick or had headaches, I'd call you, because not only would you understand a little about networking, but you'd be a great doctor. But the reality is you've got no degrees in tech, no experience in tech, and I know that you're certified, which means you know nothing. I need you to learn. So what I did then is I called 50 recruiters and asked, what are the characteristics of the best network architect? What do the employers actually want? And they gave me a list of things. I spent the next 3 to 6 months learning those things, and instantly I was hired. So please, Jeremiah, tell me what kind of security. Do you want to break into systems and be paid to do so? Tell me that, and I'll tell you what to do. Do you want security systems as a security engineer? Tell me that, and I'll tell you how to get there. Do you want to learn how to design the security architectures? It's a different plan, and I'll tell you how to get there. 3 different security careers, and they all need completely different training. So I want to make sure I know your goals so I can build that roadmap for you and help you get there.
All right, our next question. Is it possible to get the CCIE without the CCNA?
Of course. You can just take the CCIE. Absolutely. Now, the question is whether you'll pass it or not. I can tell you when I took the CCIE exam, the people that had attempted Cisco certification totaled over 3 million. And my number is 7417, and they started counting at 1028 because it was 2 to the 10th power, and they thought it was cool. So basically, I was the 64th 100 person to pass, and 3 million people had already thought about it. Now, Cisco made the CCIE a lot easier since then. It became a 1-day test versus a 2-day test, and now maybe it's got a 20% pass rate. Now, when we're talking a 20% pass rate, we're talking about people that have probably read 50,000 pages of networking. So the answer is yes, you can go do it. I did it. Of course, I was a CCNA and CCDP first, but you can do it. The question is, does it make sense in today's world? If I was going to work in networking, sure it does. If I wanted to work as an architect, I had to take it off of my business card. So what's your goal? What are you trying to do? The goal is not a certification. And, for some people, their goal is a certification. But I like to look at it this way. If I went to go buy a $3 million house, and I went to the bank and I showed them my certification, they'd say, Mike, go home. If I showed them my offer letter for my enterprise architect job, they'd say, sure, Mike, how can we help you? Now, if I wanted to go to the store and buy groceries, I can't pay with a certification. I can pay with a job. So really, what's your goal? Is it to rack and stack certifications? If so, because you like it, it's a hobby. Great, it's a hobby. And I think hobbies are great. Or is your goal to be great at what you do? And it's a totally different set of things to do. I love the CCIE. It's the only certification that I think is actually one of the few that I think is actually worth it. The question becomes, is the juice worth the squeeze?
All right, our next one. What is the best pathway for an AWS solution architect? I'm AWS solution architect certified, but still struggling.
Emmanuel, I hear this every day. The certified solution architect professional has no architecture in it whatsoever. Zero. It has the name of a service and how to configure something, which architects don't do. Now, it doesn't include any of the business acumen, which is necessary. It doesn't include any of the leadership skills, which are necessary. It doesn't include any of the sales skills, which are necessary. It doesn't include any of the executive presence, which is necessary, the presentation skills that are necessary, or anything that's really there. The next thing it doesn't include is any design. When you're done that certified solution architect professional, you still don't know how to design anything because there's no design in there. And what's missing from any AWS certifications is how the technology works, which means if you don't know how the technology works, you can't design it. Now, let's say we decided to cook something. I happen to love durwat. It's an Ethiopian dish. It's a chicken with some Burberry spices and a whole egg in there. It's kind of really cool. So let's say I had ghee and I had chicken and I had Burberry and I had some other spices and I had eggs. Would I know how to cook durwat? The answer is, of course I wouldn't. You could give me teff, and just because you tell me teff is a good grain doesn't mean I know how to make injera bread, which is common in Ethiopia, for example. I know you're not Ethiopian with your name. It's just the kind of food that I eat all the time. You actually have to understand what those ingredients are and how they're actually combined to design something. So when you're done a course like the AWS Certified Solution Architect Professional, you do know that you've got 3 storage options. You understand block storage, object storage, and file storage. But block storage is slow. How do you work around the performance of block storage? How are you dealing with RAID? What kind of RAID do you need? How many RAID arrays do you need it? Does it make sense? 98% of organizations, Emmanuel, are multi-cloud. And with multi-cloud, you can't use at least 50% of the things that are taught in a certification. So Amazon Aurora, thrown in the trash. DynamoDB, thrown in the trash. Elastic Compute Service, thrown in the trash. You name it, if it's Amazon branded and multi-cloud, you don't use it. Now, what do you do instead? Use better stuff. Use MongoDB or Apache Cassandra and you stick it in 3 different clouds. You're not going to be using for security, which we have to design. You're probably not going to be using WAF. You're going to be using a Palo Alto, Cisco, Fortinet, or Checkpoint firewall. You're going to be dealing with all kinds of wide area networking solutions, all kinds of multi-cloud solutions. So download the completely free guide. Learn the network and the data center, and then the cloud. Get design training from someone who teaches you how to put the pieces together. Kind of like learning how to be a chef. If they only told you about the ingredients like a certification, you wouldn't know how to prepare a beautiful meal. Chefs get trained. They get told this wine pairs with this food. This garlic, olive oil, and butter combination goes good together. But don't mix grape jelly and coconut oil together. They learn which flavors combine well and which ones don't. That's architecture. So you're going to need somebody to train you to be an architect, not certification training, architecture training. Then you learn those business things, and I'm telling you, you're going to have no problem getting an architecture job. This is very simple. But you actually have to have the skills of design, which are not covered in these certifications. I like to view these certifications as icing on the cake. The cake is the actual substance. None of that's covered in the certification. But if you know how to bake the cake and you have all the ingredients for the cake, and then you put a little icing on it, boy, it looks extra beautiful and people are willing to pay more for it. So do get the certification. I'm glad you have it, but you have to get the training necessary to become an architect. You don't self-train to be an architect. You don't self-train to be a doctor. You don't self-train to be a lawyer. You don't self-train to be an airplane pilot. These are jobs which you have to be taught. You can self-train to be an admin where you just configure stuff. You can't self-train to be in a position where you're going to go design $1 billion solution and you're going to have to sell it to a chief information officer, chief executive officer, and chief financial officer, and build the business case to say, hey, this $1 billion that you're going to spend is going to generate $3 billion of value by making your employees 10% more productive, increasing your opportunities for sales based on X, Y, and Z rationale. So that's the difference. But you can get there, and I encourage you. It's the best job in the world. And we get people hired almost every day.
All right, so our next one is a multi-part.
Sure.
So Darnell says, hi, Mike. I'm 60 years old, disabled due to a stroke back in 2017. I used to be a Cisco voice engineer via being a CCNP route switch and voice. Honestly, the last job I had was at Cisco Systems in Durham, North Carolina, ended in 2016. Now, 7 years later, I'm interested in being a cloud engineer. My question to you is it too late for me to be a cloud engineer?
Darnell, absolutely not. If you worked for Cisco in RTP, chances are you are already pretty great. Cisco is very selective on their hiring. I spent a decade there as well, or close to it. So definitely not too late. I'm so sorry about your CVA or your stroke. I hope you don't have a lot of long-term sequelae. I can honestly relate. I went on a training mission to Israel. I love martial arts, and I was invited to train with Krav Maga with some of the best martial artists in the world. When I was at Cisco, I got injured and couldn't walk for over 7 years, and I was in physical therapy all day for 7 years. So I retired too. It's just that I got bored and I got miserable. So I think it's a great opportunity for you. You can absolutely do it, and I encourage you to do it. And the fact that you went through a trauma like that and you want to do more, great. It's definitely not too late for you. You can do it. And the reality is anybody with a Cisco brand on their resume, it's like they went to Harvard 10 times and Oxford and Cambridge and Stanford. The world loves Cisco people. So I encourage you to do so. Now, when you apply for this job, the question is, do you check the disabled box or not? If you do, they'll have to make meaningful accommodations for you. Legally, they're not allowed to discriminate you for it. But, if you put it down there, the question is, does it change your application? So I don't know. But if I was you, I would find a good recruiter. I'm sure lots of people would be thrilled to work with you. Get the recruiter to place you directly in front of a hiring manager. Show him how or her how good you are. And if you come from Cisco and you were selling voice at Cisco, maybe as a sales engineer or an account manager or whatever you were, you're going to be great. And I encourage you to do so. I know what it's like to be sidelined. I know what it's like to make a comeback. And when you make that comeback, you're going to feel like a kid again. And I encourage you to do so. You're going to love it.
All right, next question. I have 15 years as IT systems administrator, Azure 104, and Azure Cloud Solution Architect training, but no Microsoft exams yet. Can I get a job as a cloud architect? And actually, hold on. There's another question that I saw here. I want to. And in the same vein, hi, Mike. In order for me to be a successful cloud architect, do I need to take the CCNA cert and the GCCP, or do I just need to know how the tech works?
Okay, these are two very different questions. Let's get to the first one.
Well, the end of it is very similar.
So, Samuel, and I've taken a lot of systems administrators and retrained them to be architects. Here's the thing. and I don't want you to take this the wrong way. Nobody wants to hire a techie or a systems administrator to be an architect, but you still can be. You just need to do a lot of things. So the first thing you're going to have to do is convince people you're not a systems administrator. And by that, you're going to have to take what you've done and translate it into more architecture things. So if you've done a lot of patch management, I don't care about that in an architect because architects don't do that. But what I do care about is perhaps you automated a patch management system that saved time, or it decreased security incidents by 12%. See if you can say designed automated patch management system that decreased security incidents by 10%. There you are. If you designed an automated something that decreased the need for systems administrators by 30%, you made the business more efficient. If you worked with a new identity and access management thing that simplified the user experience, which reduced man hours or women hours, whatever you want to call it, again, that's there. So architecture is about designing business solutions with technology. Technology is our tool. So the key for you is going to be as following. You might actually have a lot of the fundamentals knowledge. I'm sure you do. What you don't have, and you have to not be seen as a systems administrator. So with all the systems administrators I've worked with, and I've made so many successful, and you can do it too, the first thing is learning how to sell. As a systems administrator, you're sitting behind a desk building something. As an architect, you're never going to touch the technology again other than Microsoft Word, Microsoft PowerPoint, Microsoft Excel, and a drawing program. So you're going to have to learn how to sell. You're going to have to learn to understand business. So when a person says, we've got a 13% CAGR, what does that mean? When the person talks about their operational expenditures being high, what can you use technology to go solve that problem? When an organization says their labor productivity is low, what can you do as an architect to improve their labor productivity? So I need you to develop that business knowledge, because otherwise you won't know which problem to even solve. I need you to learn how to lead, because you're going to lead. I need you to learn how to deliver a killer presentation. Why? First, the interview includes a presentation. Secondly, you'll be presenting at conferences, you'll be presenting at executive briefings, you'll be presenting at architectures and sales solutions. Now you're going to have to learn all those emotional intelligence things to have the difficult conversations, for example. And you're going to have to learn how to build business cases and ROI models. Next, you're going to need training and learning how to design. For example, I know many network administrators and systems administrators, and they are smart. They know how to build something. But building something is different than designing it. So I've always viewed systems administrators as the builders, like a construction worker that builds a hotel. But in this case, they're building out the tech. Very good people. But the people that build a hotel aren't the people that are paid to design it. The architect designs it and the construction crews build it. So you're going to need new training, and it's not going to be Azure training. It's not going to be AWS training. You're going to need architecture training, which is based upon all the underlying pieces and how to assemble them together in a cohesive strategy that will improve business performance, that will have the necessary availability when needed, that will necessarily have the functionality that's needed, that's going to be secure and resilient. So the key is yes. I'd like you to download our free Get Your First Architect job guide and come to the How to Become the Ultimate Cloud Architect webinar. Both of them are free. And we can actually have a face-to-face conversation in the webinar. And you can tell me, and I can even interview you on the spot if you want. And I'll assess your communication skills and your leadership skills and your executive presence. And from then I can be more specific in telling you what you need. But the answer is yes. You can easily go from any of these roles there. But you know what? I've trained lawyers who become architects. I've trained nurses who become architects. I've trained people that were selling shiz at Nordstrom that became architects. I've trained waiters that got hired by AWS as architects. I've trained mental health techs that got hired as architects. I've trained salespeople that got hired as architects as their first job. And it doesn't matter your starting point. It matters the training that you actually get. If you wanted to learn to fly a plane, you go to flight school. So the answer is yes. Easy to get you these jobs. But I just want you to know how and where to do it. So download those free guides. It'll give you a list of everything you need to learn. And yes, you can get a job as a cloud architect.
All right. And then Mike says, in order for me to be a successful cloud architect, do I need to take the CCNA cert along with the GCCP, or do I only need to know how the tech works?
Well, Mike, couple of thoughts. You need to know how the tech works, how to design it, how to have leadership skills, sales skills, executive presence, emotional intelligence, and business acumen, and how to design it, not just how the tech works. No, I wouldn't tell anybody to get the Google certification. Why? It's 10% of the market. If it's your first architect job and you want a rubber stamp on your resume, why would you get the one that almost nobody uses? Look, the Google Cloud's a great cloud, but why would you get a Google certification if nobody uses the Google Cloud? So I would recommend an Azure, if anything, or an AWS, if anything. I need you to know networking. Will you learn networking in a CCNA? Not really. You'll learn some of it in a CCNA. The cloud architect needs some things from the CCIE, some things from the CCNP, and some things from the CCNA. So the CCNA is not going to be enough. You need the networking knowledge. Now, you can get these jobs with 0 certifications. We had Delroy Bad, he had none when he got an architect job. We had, for example, Robert Welch, I think he had a cloud practitioner. We had Jeffrey West, who had a cloud practitioner. He was doing some kind of geospatial imaging before we got him hired at Kalient. It's not about the certifications. It's all about your knowledge. Can you do the job? When you say GCCP, I never heard of that before. In fact, if you were referring to the Go Cloud Architects program, which you said in another comment, yeah, that's all you need. You can just finish and actually do everything that's in our training, and you should be in great shape. While we're at it, Mike Williams, since you're one of our students, here's something I recommend. We don't use acronyms ever as architects. Here's the reason. It causes confusion. MS, multiple sclerosis, morphine sulfate, Mississippi.
Microsoft.
And yeah, it could be anything.
All right. So Tavon asked, Mike, as a previous wire prim, I guess, tech, installing routers, modems, WANs, and learning about things like POTS and installing fiber optic internet service, would you consider that tech experience that could be used to become a cloud enterprise architect?
Well, Telvin, given that I've dealt with waiters and waitresses who became architects, project managers who became architects, sales reps who became architects, psychologists who become architects, it has nothing to do with your experience. Would I consider layer 1 wiring tech experience? I don't know. We don't do any layer 1 stuff. But I mean, I would put it on my resume and it's not going to hurt. But it's not what you've done in your past, it's the training you got. We'd have to get creative in hiding the kind of work that you're actually doing and coming up with a better term for it. Because the architect isn't going to be the person that's pulling cables. And I mean that in a respectful way. My brother's a low voltage electrician and he's darn good at it. Telvin, I've been an architect now for 25 years and I was a network engineer for 6 months. You know what I've never done? Made an Ethernet cable. In fact, the first time I ever plugged in a cable was in my CCIE exam. There was some kind of a patch panel and I had to, right before the exam, I was told there was going to be a patch panel with cabling and I had to go research what is a patch panel and how to plug in an Ethernet cable because I never did it. Because the design was about configuring routers and selling. So the answer is you can get the job. Will that job be teaching you much of what you need along the way? Absolutely not. But you can still get the job. Daniel Bosu didn't graduate high school and he worked at Nordstrom selling shoes. Ivan Tambo was 24 years old and he worked as a waiter before we got him hired at AWS. Coyote was a college student. Noah Parker was a social worker. Jennifer Ema was a mental health tech. Al Legister, whose first job was a senior solution architect at Deloitte, was a sales rep for Kimberly-Clark selling consumer products like tissues. Val Winter was a student of ours who was a stay-at-home mom. Vladimir, I forget his last name, the 24-year-old college student that we got his great architect job for. It doesn't matter what you did. I used to practice medicine. I'm going to tell you one thing. I learned a lot more by learning how to practice internal medicine as a nurse practitioner about architecture than I ever did in any technology course. Life is cumulative. Take the lessons that you learned and apply them. Why did medicine teach me so much? Because here's what we do in medicine. We learn all about how the body works, right? Patient comes in, they've got what's called a chief complaint, their problem. What's bringing you in? My throat hurts, for example. What do? Tell me what makes your throat better. Tell me what makes your throat worse. Then I take a tongue depressor and a flashlight and look in their throat. I feel their lymph nodes. I listen to their heart and lungs. And I say, you've got pharyngitis or a throat infection. And then I come up with a plan. I write a prescription. Now, doctor asks the patient comes in. Architect goes to a client who's got a business problem. Same thing. Doctor asks a bunch of questions. Architect asks a bunch of questions. Doctor come up with a diagnosis. Architect come up with a hypothesis. Doctor comes up with a plan. Gargle salt water, use chloroseptic spray, and take amoxicillin 500 milligrams 4 times a day, for example, with a patient not allergic to penicillin. Architect comes up with a blueprint. Here's the plan. Doctor writes a plan for a patient in the hospital. The nurses do the job. Architect makes a plan. The cloud engineers do the job. It's not your background. Your background has nothing to do with your future. It's the training and the actions you take today that determine everything about your future.
All right. From Sarah. Hi, Mike. Have you found it easier to place people in the US as opposed to people in other countries like the UK?
Well, Sarah, we've gotten a lot of people really great jobs in the UK. We've gotten people great jobs in Australia, a lot of people great jobs in Canada, people jobs in Mexico, people jobs in India, people jobs in the Middle East, people jobs in Asia. So we're getting people jobs everywhere. Now, I will tell you, it's a little easier in the US. It's a little rough in the UK that we get people hired there all the time. The UK has been experimenting with some 4-day work weeks, which is causing companies to lower the salaries of all employees in England, because if it's a 4-day work week and you need people to work 5 days or more, you got to hire more staff. And the only way you can hire more staff is to pay less to each person. You can't just give money that you don't own. But no, we're getting people hired absolutely everywhere. In fact, we recently had Kemi, who was a program manager, who just got a lead architect job in the UK just about a week or two ago. And in the last week or two, we've gotten many more people in the UK jobs too. So the answer is yes, you can still get hired in any part of the world. Absolutely any part. And we've seen people get hired anywhere. We've actually seen some really crazy high salaries in Australia. For some of them, we've gotten a lot of $300,000 jobs in Australia. We've also gotten some people some $300,000 Canadian jobs. And about 3 weeks ago, we got someone a $404,000 job in the US. So the key is the jobs are there. But we have found salaries in the UK to be a little lower ever since they started talking about the 4-day work week.
All right. Diggleman asks, what course is the one with live classes?
Actually, all of our courses are live unless they say non-live on them.
Yep.
The Cloud Architect Career Development is live. The Elite Architect Program is live. The Tech Leadership Program is live. The Tech Interview Mastery Program is live. Now, we do have some non-live versions that I have in big giant letters, non-live on them. And we did that, and I personally prefer live training, and I recommend it to absolutely everyone. But there are some people that just can't work, that are working during the times of our live classes. And a tremendous number of wonderful people in India and Africa asked us to come up with a lower cost solution. So we came up with a non-live version for it to really assist those people that are in extreme need, or people that couldn't attend our live classes. But we recommend the live classes. The one that's gotten most of the people their jobs is the Cloud Architect Career Development Program. And we've had extraordinary success with our Tech Interview Mastery Program as well. Taking people that are well-trained and giving them the interview skills to get them great jobs. In fact, recently we had a perfume sales rep who just got a really great Cloud Architect job, who took both our architect program and our interview program. And the interview training, you said, helped them a lot.
Let's see. Jeremiah says, what is it about information tech security? How long will it take to complete the security architecture program with you guys?
Well, with us, our cloud architect program, where you could become a cloud security architect, will probably take you 6 to 12 months. Now, with us, Jeremiah, we're different than everybody. I hate boot camps, and we retrain people from boot camps every day of the week. Here's why I hate boot camps. I've got someone like Daniel Both who wasted $35,000 on some ridiculous boot camp, and he came to us with no skills. 6 months later, we got him hired by retraining him. We will have you stay on our program until the day you are hired. I said it. When you come to us, you do our training and you stay on our program until the day you are hired, and you have lifetime access to the content. Because as we teach a new class, the new class is added to the content, and then you can continue to use it to improve your business and your skills for the rest of your life. That's what we actually do. And that's really important to me. You know, I didn't create a program to give you a certification, kick you out of the door after taking a lot of your money and say, goodbye, I don't care about you. That's a boot camp. With us, you come to us, and as long as you do what we tell you and don't quit, there's no reason you shouldn't be hired, because you stay in our program until the day you are. But can you do it in 6 months? Can you do it in 12 months? I don't know how fast you learn. I had Richard Afukar, who came to me 3 weeks later. He was hired by AWS. I had Delroy Batt, who came to me, never worked in tech before. He worked on ambulances. And 3 weeks later, he was hired in doing security for a company called Bridgestone at the time, tire company. I also have people that have come to me that had to go visit their family in another country for 9 months. And when they came back from the vacation, they attended back in our class, and it took them another year. All I care is that you get hired, Jeremiah, but I'd say 6 to 12 months is average. There's about 500 to 700 hours of training in our program, and that's what it's going to take to get you a really, really great job. Really great job. And we'd love to work with you. And I look forward to the day you tell me, Mike, I'm cloud hired, because it's a big party that we all celebrate every single day, almost every single day at this point.
All right. Emmanuel says, I totally agree with you. Thank you. So where and how do I get these training and mentorships? So I'll make sure to send a link to him on LinkedIn.
Yes. And Emmanuel, we'll send you how. As far as architecture training, I know of nobody else that's doing it. No one. And we retrain everybody who's doing cloud training that you can think of. Wouldn't be appropriate for me to give you the ridiculous names of those people, but we retrain all of their students. Now, the business acumen training, we provide it, but if you didn't want to do that with us, you could get an MBA, Master's in Business Administration. We take a lot of those major elements and include in our program because they're necessary, but that's going to be the process. I'd love to work with you. Or you can find an architect that's been an architect for 10 years and pay them for mentoring. It'll be cheaper with us, but I just want you to get a great architect job. And I look forward to the day where you can tell me you've got a great one.
All right. And let's see. Another question from Emmanuel. What is the unique difference between a cloud architect and a solution architect? I love this question.
I love that question. It's a great question. In theory, we're the same, but we're not. So a cloud architect like me is going to work with a customer, and I'm going to help them work with their Nutanix cloud, their OpenStack cloud, and all my students even build the cloud from scratch in all of our programs, at least our architect programs. So, but here's the thing. With us, you're going to learn all the clouds, because nobody uses just AWS. Nobody uses just Azure. Nobody that matters. Because all clouds, no matter how many regions and availability zones you use, have a common network, a common control plane. And a hacking event, a network failure, a control plane failure can take the whole cloud down. And if you're a hospital on a single cloud, when that cloud goes down, people are going to die. If it's a 911 or a 999 emergency services system and the cloud goes down, people are going to die. If it's a bank, 5 minutes of downtime can mean $50 million lost. So everybody, 98% of all organizations are multi-cloud. So a solution architect works for AWS and sells AWS stuff, where they work for Azure and sell Azure stuff. A cloud architect can work anywhere and will design a hybrid cloud or a multi-cloud solution. I mind you, a lot of our graduates that we train to be cloud architects go off and work for AWS, Azure, or Google, because cloud architect can easily do a solution architect job. Because the cloud architects have so much knowledge of the underlying technology, they can work anywhere. But a solution architect wouldn't be able to get a cloud architect job because the cloud architect is a more sophisticated role. Because it includes multi-cloud, it pays more. The average cloud architect earns $218,000 a year. A really great cloud architect, you can see easily earning $500,000 a year. Then again, a really good solution architect, you can. Average principal architect salary at Google is about $508,000 a year. Average principal architect salary at AWS is about $372,000. Average principal architect salary at Microsoft is about $380,000. You can verify them anytime you desire on what's that site that we Glassdoor.
All right.
And these are in line with what we've seen.
Next question. How long does the program take if you take it at a full-time rate?
I don't know how fast you learn. So the program takes until you are hired. The fastest I've seen anybody get through my program is 3 weeks. But I've also seen plenty of people that take a year. I like to say 6 to 12 months. Because let's assume you can remember everything and you can read 1,000 pages a day like me. That doesn't mean that it's not going to take you 9 months to learn how to give a killer presentation and sell $1 billion solution. Maybe you can do it overnight. Maybe you can. The key with us is you're in it until you have the skills to be hired and are hired. But you have to understand, and I want to set expectations realistically. The only job in the world that pays as much as a cloud architect is a doctor, which means you have to take on $500,000 of debt and 4 years of college, 4 years medical school, 4 years residency, so about 12 years of your life. Some lawyers earn as much as cloud architects, and again, it's $500,000 of student loans, 4 years of college, 3 years of law school. Of course, you can earn it as an airline captain, which means flight school, and then after flight school, about 30 years till you could reach captain status. So 6 to 12 months is the fastest anybody can actually say. And how do we get it done in 6 to 12 months? Well, I've been an architect for 2.5 decades, and we give you everything that you need and nothing that you don't. But if you actually did our entire program, and most of our students are hired long before they complete the program, it's about 700 hours of content and training right now. Most people only probably get away halfway through and they're hired.
Which program allows you to build your own cloud, and is it necessary?
Well, architects don't touch any technology. But here's the thing. Somebody that does an AWS certification sets up an S3 bucket and doesn't know what it is. You actually build the cloud and you can describe cloud computing to someone for real because you've created it yourself. Our Cloud Architect Career Development Program has it because we're creating cloud architects. Our Cloud Architect Live and non-live both have it, but there's a huge difference between the live and non-live in the education. It's part of our labs for all of our any architecture program we have related to the cloud. Because let's face it this way. If you're on an interview and somebody asks if you've done it before, the answer is saying yes. What do hiring managers care, Indy? They care about the following. Can you do the job? They care about, can they trust you? They care about if you're excited, energetic, enthusiastic, and passionate about the work. They care if you communicate well. They care if you're a good team player, and they care if you've gone above and beyond. Someone else said, I set up an S3 bucket, and I taught a 6-year-old to do it in less than 5 minutes. Nobody's going to pay you $200,000 to do something I could teach a 6-year-old in 5 minutes. Now, when someone says I configured an S3 bucket, the hiring manager says, yeah, so whatever. When you say I built my own cloud, does that show competency? Yes. Does it show energy, enthusiasm, and passion? Yes. Does it show willingness to go above and beyond? Yeah, it does. So just by doing that, it makes you stand out on your resume. And by doing that with the right interview training and coaching, which we provide, and the right presentation skills and the right sales skills, you now know how to sell yourself into the job. And then we even provide the negotiation training to negotiate a higher salary. You can't do hardball negotiation with a hiring manager because worst case scenario is they actually hire you and hate you because you destroyed the relationship. and then you burn your name. Most likely, if people negotiate wrong, they just don't get the job. So you have to negotiate a right way, show the manager you care, you're just trying to get more money because you need it for whatever reason, you're worth it, and showing them why. So we even provide training on that. Nobody leaves our program without a great skill set.
All right. So, Darnell, hello, Mike again. Is it possible to find a cloud architect job working from home because I'm disabled?
Yes. So Darnell, I understand your situation. I had an injury and couldn't walk for 7 years. In fact, it takes me 3 hours per day in the morning just to be able to move. I have to do certain things with my feet and my legs. I sit in a sauna. I do yoga in a 130-degree room, all outfitted in my house because I can't walk before I do that for the most part. Now, I've also, Darnell, worked from home as an architect since 2001. 2001. The only question is you may periodically have to visit your client. Now, if you're disabled and truly disabled, the company would be willing to let you work from home and send somebody else. But unless you're truly disabled, and I mean disabled where you can't leave your house, the reality is you can spend 90% of the time in your house and 10% of the time flying. Now, when you're like me, you've got herniated discs and this and that and the other thing, your company will pay for first-class tickets for you and car services to pick you up and take you back as part of the Americans with Disabilities Act. And they'll take good care of you. And yes, most architects actually do work from home. Almost all of us do. The question is, we do also have to go to the customer site, and that's the key.
All right.
Come to the webinar tomorrow, and we can actually assess you live.
I think you're referring to this question for that one. So, Mike, you've mentioned that we can get a call with you so you can assess our skills and advance where we can go from there. How can I register to get this call?
Well, Sarah, okay, Chris.
I was going to say, so I'll provide her the link to that, and I'll also provide her the link to the webinar as well.
Yes. So, and Sarah, if you come to the webinar, which is free on Thursday, and you turn on your camera and come up mute after the 30-minute presentation, I will have a face-to-face conversation with you right there. If you'd like to book a private call, you can actually book a private call. It's not a cheap call because the opportunity cost of my time where I can't be, and it's about a 16-week wait. And that's one of the reasons I come live once a week on YouTube and have this webinar so I can help the world learn how to become an architect, and we can have face-to-face conversations. That time is always blocked off for me. And please come on Thursday, which I think is tomorrow, right?
Absolutely. And so I'll provide those two links to you, Sarah, while Mike is answering the next question. I'll let you read it out loud so that I can.
What is the structure of a program once enrolled? Theory, practice, lab, resume, LinkedIn optimization, present, do I get assigned a mentor? What is the sequence? Very simple. We have live classes 3 times per week. You attend the live classes on Zoom. If you can't attend a live class, then you watch the recording of the live class. In the live class, we do hands-on architecture. What does that mean? Hands-on architecture. We design solutions together for very complicated problems, working on the kind of solutions that most architects may never get, much bigger. And then when my architects get an architecture from AWS, they laugh and they say, "It's it? This is really what we have to design? Are you kidding me? We did this. This is nothing, Mike." And I say, "Yeah, that's because we trained you right." So we do live architecture training. In between the classes, you will have lots of things to do. You will give presentations, for example, and we will grade your presentations to improve them for you and help you coach you. You will design architectures, and we will coach you. You will do labs, whether they be build your own cloud, some labs on AWS and Azure. Now, the labs won't teach you how to design. Unfortunately, they won't, except for the build your own cloud. But we do the lab, so if anybody's ever asked if you've done it, you're there. We also create an internship as part of our program, so you've got actual work experience when you leave our program. And so, I mean, it's a combination of live, and then there's in between classes, there's hundreds of hours of video training on architecture design, tech fundamentals, leadership training, sales training, how to improve your resume, how to do your interviews. And of course, there's resume training in there, there's interview training in there, and there's salary negotiation training. This is a turnkey, one-stop shop, everything you needed all in one place environment.
All right, we got a follow-up question here. Also, how do I learn multi-cloud, Azure, Google, and AWS practice labs to sharpen my skills so I can be confident enough to take on the role?
Well, you can do practice labs in every cloud and you're still not going to be able to take on the role. We will teach you how to design across the clouds and teach you how the technology works. And most people that are new to tech don't understand what I mean by design versus configuring. And here's the difference, Charles. I'm going to take something from networking. You take a class and you do a hands-on lab and someone tells you to turn on OSPF. So you go to the router via SSH, you type enable, and then you enter your password, and then you type config T, configure terminal, and then you press enter. And then you type router OSPF1. You've now started a router process for OSPF. You type in network 192.168.1.0, 0.0.0.3 area 0, and you've configured OSPF. Done. That's your whole lab. You've done it. Now, does that teach you how to constrain the link state advertisements that occur in OSPF across domains? No. Does it teach you how to decrease the memory and the operational overhead on the router? No. Does it teach you that that area 0 will have a type 1 LSA generated by the routers, a type 2 LSA generated by the designated routers, a type 3 LSA generated across areas, a type 4 LSA, which tells you how to reach the autonomous system border router, and a type 5 LSA, which comes from an external domain? No, you won't learn that by the configuration command. You also won't learn why you need a network backbone, which areas can become stub, which ones can be totally stubby, which ones can be not so stubby, and why you would need them. We will teach you that equivalent. You have to learn the tech, and you don't learn it by building it. You learn how to build by building. And if you don't believe me, I'd like you to look at all the architects across the world. Did the people that designed the Burj Al Arab or any hotel you like actually do the building? No. Do architects train in construction? No, because it doesn't teach you how to do the job whatsoever. Architects go to school to be architects, construction workers learn on the job. We will give you labs in AWS, we will give labs in Azure, we will give you labs in OpenStack. Why? So you can tell somebody you've done them when they ask. You got stuff to put on your resume. We will teach you in class how to design the architectures and get you hired, because it's a very different skill. Architects in their jobs don't configure the lab. You'll be confident enough in the lab when we go in a class and we design an architecture and you can design it, then you're going to be confident. But if you think I can give you a hammer and a song and a screwdriver and you'll be competent enough to design a shopping mall or a 5-star hotel, it's a completely different skill. And Charles, we can easily get you hired, and that's why we have to retrain everybody else. And here's the reason. They all come after doing thousands of these hands-on labs, and they're all confident in building. And then when someone says, how do you design a 5 nines available system for me? How can you design my demilitarized zone? How can you design my machine learning application? What technologies can you use to improve my sales by 3%? That's architect, and we teach you all of that. Plus, we'll also teach you how to build it, but that's not going to sharpen your skills. That's just going to be something so you can say you did it. And I hope that made sense to you.
All right. Speaking of another alum there. Hello, Mike, Chris. Glad to have you here.
Gladys, we're so thrilled to see you. I think you're over in the UK. I know you're working as a cloud architect, and I know working with you was such a pleasure. You brought a smile every day. You brought competency out there, Gladys. I am so thrilled to see you.
All right. And so let's see. We've only got one or two questions left. So if you've got any more questions, put them here in the chat box, put them in the comments, wherever you are, LinkedIn, YouTube. Get those questions in there before we have to leave. So Indy says, I'm currently doing a solution cert for AWS. Will this look good on a resume with the training you provide?
So the answer is, here's how we use certifications. After you learn it, we recommend 1 or 2 certifications as dressing on your resume. As long as you don't think and use any of the things that are taught in your certification in your job and you learn how to be an architect, because what they teach versus what you do are two different things, it will look great on your resume, and I strongly recommend it. But we'll get you hired. We'll give you the training to get you hired. And that certification we can use to help you get an interview. And then what we teach you will get you hired so you can close the interview and win the interview.
All right. And Gladys is actually over there in Texas.
Texas, oh.
That's where Gladys is. I remember seeing pictures from one of the Dallas meetups with
That's
her.
right, you're right.
Everybody else over there.
It was Kemi that was in the UK.
Yes, yes. All right. Indy says, are you able to ask for help when you get stuck on anything? Is there a live for just questions?
There's 3 classes per week that are live where you could ask questions. In between
and there's
classes,
a Slack community with channels specifically for questions.
And there's a Slack community for in-between class sessions.
Yep.
There's never a time where anybody would ever be lost in our training. But we also have to be responsible. So here's one of the ways, and if you've got any more questions, please ask them. Here's one of the ways a good student learns things.
Ask questions.
Ask questions. But let's say I'm reading a book, and the book mentions a term that I don't know. I'm going to go look it up, and I'm going to read about it. If there's something I don't know, I'm going to go look it up. So the answer is yes. We are there to teach you how to be an architect. We are there to teach you the process of how to find the information. We're here to teach you the process how to build the architecture teams. We're here to teach you the process to go close the interview. We're here to teach the process to make you so good you can get any job you desire. And we can't do that if we don't answer your questions.
I will say most of my initial responses to the questions is, what have you found so far? Because that's part of our responsibility is to, like Mike said, train you and get you into the position of using the resources that are available to you.
And before we get to the next one, Matthew, if you can hear me, please tell me what actual job you desire, because you just mentioned a certification. I need to know what job you want so we can help you get the right kind of experience.
All right. Olu says, what is the average cost implication for your training?
I don't know what you mean by cost average implementation, but I could tell you that if you paid full price for our training, which is $2,500, our average salary is between $150,000 and $300,000 a year, which means that it's got about a 50 times return on investment capital in the first year. And over the course of a career that's going to pay you about $6 or $7 million, $2,500 of training is really cheap. So the implications, this is probably the best return on investment of your entire life in any investment in the entire world. And whether it's ours or anyone else, you don't get a great job self-studying. You just don't. You don't learn how to fly an airplane on your own because you'd crash the plane and that wouldn't be good. You don't do a surgery on someone without learning how to be a doctor first. And you don't become a lawyer without going to law school. So, it's there. But our costs, we kept it low. We pretty much run our training at our own costs because I don't really need to work and I'm here to change lives. And I charge what I do to hire the team of world-class people like Chris or Alonzo. And I've got some people like Chow and Leah that are so good. And I can't do that without charging, but we pretty much charge our cost.
All right. Arthur asked, what's the difference between principal cloud architect and cloud architect, and have any gone from the program into a principal cloud architect role?
Well, I'm not going to have people leave our program as a principal architect. As a rule, you need a lot of experience to be a principal architect. Now, I did it in less than 2 years. I'm confident that many of our graduates, after several years, can actually go do it. But principal architect means you've already been there and done it. So a principal architect is a director or VP level person at most organizations. So coming out of our program, here's realistic. Getting a solution architect job or a cloud architect job, easy. Getting a senior solution architect job, we've had a lot of people do it. Getting a senior solution architect job straight out of the program and a principal architect job 2 to 5 years later, that's feasible if you do the additional business acumen and leadership. What's the real difference between the two? As an architect, you're working with clients directly. As a principal architect, you're often consulting to other architects. So here's what I did as a principal architect. Let's say Verizon was going to be interested in $1 billion network deal. They're going to already have their sales engineers. They're going to have their solutions architects that are going to be working with them. And then they're going to research for a heavy hitter like me to come in. And they're going to say, Mike, I need you to come in and talk to this career. So for example, when I was a principal architect in IP Multicast, they had their teams, and I would go talk to people in the M-Bone. I would write thought leadership documents on Multicast. I would train the architects and the engineers that worked in the company. I would present at big industry conferences. I would go present to the biggest service providers in the world. I worked as a resource to help the other architects that are actually there, those kinds of things. So to be the architect's architect, you're going to have to do the job for a little while. And those people would be more coming out of our principal, coming out of our, out of our elite architect program, or they'd be architect graduates that took the tech leadership program afterwards, because there's a lot more business in the principal architect jobs. But it's a great, great, great job. A principal architect job is basically, instead of getting, so let's say you're an architect and you want to earn more, what used to happen is people like me would just go take director and VP positions, and then they wouldn't have any good architects anymore. So the companies decided to say, here, we still need architects, but we're going to pay you an executive salary. We're going to consider you strategic leadership, and you're going to train you with the executives. And it's that hybrid position between an architect and a business executive. Great job.
All right. The next one is currently our last question. So if anybody's got any questions, please share them with us. We'll be here for just a few more minutes. It's not really a question, more of a statement, but we can address it. I work full-time Pacific time, and my biggest constraint is not being part of the live classes and thus can't ask questions and learn. For example, coaching on presentation, business acumen, etc.
Well, you'll still get some coaching, and here's what I mean. There's a tremendous number of presentations and things that you'd have to do, and you may not be able to do them in class and get direct coaching from me, but you'll create, there might be a video that's like, how do you interview with a question? Tell me about yourself. And you'll turn that in, and our team will actually give you feedback on that. So you'll always be getting coaching. And the reality is, after training architects for as long as I have and running these classes, what you'll see is a lot of the people are going to make the same mistakes that you're going to be making, and you'll see the coaching that we give to others if you can't attend. But I'm sure you can attend some of them. For example, you can attend the Tuesday class, which is 10 a.m. our time, and it ends at 12 a.m. So that if you're in Pacific time, that would be 10 a.m. would be 7 a.m. Pacific to to 9 a.m. Pacific. And even if you could attend one class, that would be worth it. Not doing the non-live by attending the live. Thursdays are 4 to 6 p.m. You may find that you work full time, but you can sneak an hour or even 30 minutes to attend the class, and we can give you some coaching there. Fridays are 1 to 3. So you might actually be able to take an early lunch and attend some of Fridays. Charles, we had to pick this time, and here's why we picked it. We've got clients all over the world, but the majority of our clients are in the US, Canada, South America, England, Europe, and Africa. We've got a tremendous number of people in these environments. We have over 500 people from Nigeria, for example, about 400 people from Cameroon, a tremendous number of people in South Africa. In fact, Tyrone, who's running this call behind the scenes, is living in South Africa, and Eddie and Anselm from our team are living in Cameroon. So we've got people all over the world that work together. We've got people that get together and literally speaking, practice interviews together. We've got a Slack community that is so big. We had Friday, who was over in Nigeria, who was organizing a meetup group where they all got together. We've got meetup groups all across the US, Canada, England, and everywhere in between. And I'm sure we could find a way to make it work. We're really flexible. And if it took you longer, because you could only attend Mondays, for example, and some of the time on Fridays, we don't have a rush. You stay with us until you're hired. What if it took you 12 months? We don't care. All I care is at the end of the day that you get hired. And whether it's on a Tuesday's class, which I'm sure you can attend, the Thursday's class you may or may not be able to. The Fridays you could probably sneak a little bit for lunch in there. We'd find a way. You'd do well.
All right. Next question. I am an accountant. I really desire to become a cloud architect. What are my chances?
With the right training, 100%. So I've gotten waiters hired, psychologists hired, social workers hired, geologists hired, people that worked at Nordstrom hired as cloud architects. I've gotten stay-at-home moms hired as cloud architects, project managers hired as cloud architects. I've gotten teachers hired as architects. I'm a nurse practitioner. I used to practice internal medicine, and I got an architect job 25 years ago. The key is 100%. Now, if you're doing certification training as your form of training, the chances are 0 to 1%. But if you're getting the kind of training that we would provide, and you stayed in the training until you're hired, you're going to get hired. But again, it doesn't matter. I even got a high school dropout, Daniel Bosu, hired by JP Morgan Chase. Wallace Agana, who also got hired by JP Morgan Chase, was a sales rep in his previous life. And JP Morgan Chase hired Jennifer Emo, who was a mental health tech, a psychologist. Being an accountant has a lot more related to what we're doing than an actual engineer. And you might say, Mike is crazy. What do you mean by that? An engineer codes and configure. We don't do any of that. We design a solution, present it, and sell it. In accounting, you have to understand tax law, for example. Let's say you're a tax accountant, like a CPA. Person comes to you and they said, I sold this much. And you got to go figure out what expenses you can actually use to deduct that from the revenue. From there, you got to figure out alternative means that an organization can place the money in. You're designing a plan. Now, then you're actually running the numbers, which the architects wouldn't do. But, understanding of how things work in the tax law, understanding of how the business works, and then counting it and providing guidance, that's the architecture job. It's a lot more related to that than if you actually worked as a programmer. We don't do anything with programming. We don't sit behind a desk. We don't code. We don't look at code. We don't have anything to do with that. So we are a business job. We have to help. Executives come to us and they say, Mike, how do we improve our business performance? We have to look at their balance sheets. We have to look at their financial statements. We have to then interview the stakeholders. What's going on? What's going on well? Where are their pain points? We've got to design a business architecture. How does the business operate today? And how do we want the business architect to design in the future, design a business architecture? From there, we evaluate the technology design and architecture. Then what do we need to do? We need to design an implementation plan, more planning, more business stuff. We need to go engage and talk to the stakeholders and sell our solution, and then build a business case inclusive of an ROI model to show that the value of the solution is greater than its costs. I'd say as an accountant, you probably have 30% of the skills already. It'd be a lot easier, and it's easy to transition you there. We could easily get you there. I want you to download the document on how to become a cloud architect or get our free architect job guide. And I'd like to see you on Thursday if you can attend our free webinar. And we'll tell you every skill you need to learn, and we can have a face-to-face conversation. But I'm sure you could do it as long as you got the right training.
All right. So Matthew told us that he wants to be a solution architect. So he says, I've completed the AWS Associate a year ago, but how do I get real-life experience with use cases that are relatable? I found that theory and real-world environments are completely different.
Okay, Matthew, I'm going to be 100% honest. There is nothing in an AWS certification that has anything to do with the solution architect or cloud architect role. So you are correct. They are very different. And I want you to understand the difference. The certification is the name of a service and how to design it. I'm sorry, the name of a service and how to configure it. Now, I want you to understand this. If I go talk to my customer about S3 buckets and EC2 instances, they're going to kick me out of the room and I'll be fired so fast and replaced by somebody else like that. And here's the reason why. Executives don't like jargon, and they don't know, and they also don't want to hear anybody's marketing names. If I talk to a chief information officer about their 10,000 virtual machines they have, and I talk about hosting their 10,000 virtual machines on the cloud, now we're having a face-to-face conversation. If I tell them I'm using EC2 instances instead of virtual machines, I'm speaking gibberish to them. They're going to laugh me out of the room. Now, in an AWS solutions architect, they're going to tell you there's a shift from a capital expenditure to an operational expenditure like it's a good thing. Is it? Well, if you don't know how to examine the organization's capital structure, what is their weighted average cost of capital? How much cash do they have on hand? How do they need to leverage that cash in the future? And you just try to tell people, move to OpEx, it's great. Well, lots of businesses don't like renting, they like buying. So you're going to have to be able to show that. And we would teach you how to show that when it's right or when it's wrong. Or guess what? When you would actually design a hybrid cloud for them with a data center or that, or maybe you design them a private cloud and they keep it all in their data center and save money. You're still doing it as a cloud architect. So good, you're there. And I want you to understand that. So the next thing is design. What's not taught in the certification is how the tech actually works. You're taught how to configure it, which is not the same as how it works. So you have to learn how the technology works. And then you're going to have to learn how to put the pieces and parts together. Now, architecture is design. You know, when somebody hires an architect and says, I want a hotel, and they say, I want it 1,000 meters tall, and I want a waterfall, I want a golf course, 6 restaurants, that's architecture. And that's not covered in a certification. You're going to have to take some training. And I want you to understand the difference. So, you know, what AWS is saying is basically chicken is called elastic kota. And rice is called risi. I'm using Greek words because I figure it's the Greek words, marketing words, it might as well be the same thing. You need to use some limonia, which means lemon. Now you need scordal, which is garlic. You need a latte, which is salt, and you need peppetti. Now, if I didn't teach you how to cook it, and I just told you what those things are, you wouldn't know what it meant. So you're going to need the training to be taught. The same way a chef would be taught how to combine food ingredients, where they would say this sauce goes with this meat, which goes with this starch, which goes with this kind of vegetable. Balance the color and make the plate look a certain way. By the way, this steak would go well with this type of a Cabernet or Merlot, for example, with regards to pairing it. And the chef would know to be taught these. And you have to be trained. Nobody becomes a chef by figuring it out themselves. Nobody gets taught how to build an airplane flight path, and nobody gets an architect job by doing certifications. Now, Matthew, I was retired, and I really had no intention of going back to work again. Thankfully, I had a great architecture career and didn't need to. I came out of retirement for the following reason. I was asked by a friend, I had this giant cryptocurrency mining data center in Kansas, McPherson, Kansas, because it had the lowest electric rates in the country that I could find without going to the West Coast, to places like Seattle, where I wanted to be local, or not local, but closer, and I didn't want to be over there. So the person that I rented the space from said to me, he's like, can you make sure my kid, when he gets done college, gets a great job? So I said, sure. And I promised the father I would coach him for free because the father was a friend of mine. So what I did is I bought the kid the 3 best-selling AWS courses. And I told the father that I would spend 2 to 4 hours with him. Now, Matthew, after 3 days, this nice young man, his name was Nathan, called me and he said, Mike, I set up an S3 bucket and an EC2 instance, but what are they? I said, Nathan, what do you mean, what are they? I bought you 3 courses. Did you watch them? And he said, yeah, Mike, I configured them, but I still don't know what they are. And I said, Nathan, here's what we're going to do. I said, I'm going to go watch these courses now. I said, if I found out you're lazy, I'm going to tell your father I can't train you. And Matthew, I watched these 3 courses in horror. Horror. I learned how to, it was teaching you how to configure something. I was watching, I was like, okay, I know how to configure something. I don't know what it is. And there was no design in it. So I told Nathan that we were going to write a book on passing the AWS exams and give it away for free and teach some of it. And that he and I were going to create a training program. A year later, our graduates are working at AWS, Azure, this was a year ago, Cisco, Google, Apple, Microsoft, Accenture, Deloitte, KPMG, Capgemini. And it was like overnight, everybody started getting hired. So you're going to have to get trained by people that are expert architects, not someone that was a DevOps engineer, not a SysOps engineer, not a cloud engineer. They don't know what architects do. Why? Because they've never had the job. It's like asking a paramedic to say, how do I become a doctor? And what does a doctor do? They don't know. Not that paramedics aren't great. They're great. I was one. That's how I paid my way through school, but they're there. But we can easily help you. If you download the free guide, you're going to learn a lot of what you need. If you come to our class, our free webinar on Thursday, you'll absolutely learn the rest of the skills that you need. And then from there, you can determine whether you want to get them from us, whether you want to get an MBA, and to develop all the skills you need. But you're going to be great no matter what you do, and I just want you to get there. So please download the free guide. Please, please, please make sure you learn what you need to learn, and it's not going to be a problem getting a job. It's like nothing getting one of these jobs when you have the right skill. I can also tell you from the employer side, here's what it's like. How do I design this? And somebody lies to you. Interview's over. You ask the next person, how does this thing work? Interview's over. You ask the next person, I can write a Python script. Yeah, but we don't write Python. Interview's over. How does this work? So it's impossible to find someone. And that's why it's so easy to get a job if you've got the right skills.
All right. So the next one is our last one. Isam says, I'm an aerospace engineer and I've been studying DevOps for the last year and want to land my first job in DevOps since I lost interest in aerospace engineering. I passed CLF 2 weeks ago, preparing for my SAA. Any advice, please?
Isam, so I don't know which country you're in. I hope you're not in the US, the UK, or Canada, because if you are, it's not a great place for engineering right now. If you are someplace in the developing world, so it's like India, engineering careers are really booming, because what happens is, as artificial intelligence takes over, we need less engineers. As people leverage more and more cloud computing, I don't need a DevOps engineer in California where the average home is $1.49 million and I need to pay someone $300,000 just to break even. I can hire someone somewhere else at a much lower cost. So organizations are outsourcing a tremendous number of their engineering jobs, and companies like IBM, for example, cut 7,200 positions, citing artificial intelligence as the reason, and then they cut another 8,000 jobs. Now, what they said is we're not cutting customer-facing jobs, like architect jobs. So, I recommend, if you want to be an engineer, I hope you're in the developing world, and at least consider that, and consider architecture as a thought. Maybe you want to get out of engineering and move into architecture in the future. Now, to get a DevOps job, the last thing I want you to do is focusing on certification. The first thing that I want you to do, if you want to be a DevOps engineer, first you need to be a developer. If you're not a developer, you're not going to be able to be a DevOps engineer, in reality, in most cases. So learn how to be a good developer. Next, you need to learn the DevOps tools, whether they be Jenkins or Spinnaker or the cloud ones. You need to learn all of them, because it's not all going to be the cloud stuff. Then, in addition to being a good software developer, you probably should have some good Python skills, because you're going to be using it. Then you're going to need to have some very good Kubernetes skills. And then after your Kubernetes skills, you should become pretty good at scripting, things like Linux scripting. And now for an engineer, not an architect, you're going to need a whole lot of Linux knowledge as well. And then you're going to need a lot of infrastructure as code knowledge like Terraform. I have a friend, Sandeep Das, over in India. He's a very good DevOps engineer, and he also has a very good YouTube channel talking about DevOps engineering. Just note in the back of your mind, artificial intelligence today can do DevOps engineering jobs, and it's only going to get better, but it can never do the architect job. Architects will always be in demand because of the customer facing, because of the sales, because of the leadership, the executive presence. And if you want to be a DevOps engineer, great, enjoy it. But if you do, so especially since you said you're in the EU, I want you to develop the skills that make you irreplaceable. And that is your communication skills. That is your leadership skills. That is your sales skills, and that is your emotional intelligence. And that way, you've got skills that cannot be replicated by artificial intelligence. You've got skills that are critically needed everywhere. So if you do that, you'll be in great shape as a DevOps engineer. But don't just learn the tech, learn those other things. That's the way to make your engineering career not only pay you more, 30, 40, 50% more, have more opportunity, but also not to be laid off or replaced by AI, because AI can't do those things.
All right. All right. So I think that was a pretty good Q&A session. It didn't take them long to get warmed up to us today. So
Not at all. And I want to tell Sarah to come to the conference tomorrow because she had a couple more questions.
yeah, that's what I was about to say. I was going to say, you know, I sent her a message on LinkedIn.
Okay.
You know, what she's put there in the chat box requires a bit more nuance than what we can do in this forum that we're in right now. So if you're able to come tomorrow, we can actually have a conversation, and instead of reading your text and then trying to answer it and then waiting for your text, and then we can actually have a conversation tomorrow. So and that goes for everybody. If you want some more information, if you got a little bit more nuanced questions, come to the webinar. Tyrone, if you can, put the link there on LinkedIn and on YouTube to tomorrow's webinar, so that they can join us for that. So, any last words from you, Mike?
Yes, a couple things. One is never let anything stop you from achieving your goals. All of you, 100% of you can achieve incredible things. Don't let anything stop you. Whether you've had a stroke in the past, which someone said, or you've got a partial disability or a complete disability, there's still something great you can do. For the rest of the people that don't have that, you've got nothing in your way. Most of the obstacles in our way we can overcome and surmount. The best investment in the world is your own education. Whether you get it from us or you get it from someone, a valuable and practical education is critical. Wealthy people invest. They delay gratification and they spend their money on things that make them better or enhance their business performance or enhance themselves. I want you all to be successful. Invest in yourself, whether it's yourself or someone else. I want you to have the most success. Don't let any obstacle in your way stop you. If you're like me and you struggle to walk, you can still be successful. You just got to work at a different angle. And more importantly, if you don't like the job you're in, do something different. I liked when I used to practice internal medicine as a nurse practitioner, but I love tech. And yes, it took time. Yes, it took effort to transition careers, but I did it, and you can do it too. I've helped people do it every single day of the week, and what I really want is for you to have a career that makes you happy. You know, we spend 8-10 hours a day in our jobs. We spend 6 to 10 hours a day sleeping. It's a big percentage of your life, like 30%, 33% or more. I want you to have a life of your dreams, and you can all have it. So no matter what you do, go after your dreams. Want to fly an airplane? Go to flight school. Want to be an architect? Go to architect training. Want to go be a physician? Great. Become such a physician that's so great that you can cure, that you can treat people and make them better. But I want you to be happy, and all of you can do it. There's not a single person that I've ever met that can achieve more than they've done with the right planning and the right education. So hope to see many of you tomorrow on the How to Become the Ultimate Cloud Architect webinar. Was it 1 p.m., Chris? Eastern?
Yes.
At 1 p.m. Eastern. For those of you that can't attend, sign up and maybe do it on another day. And please download the free guide on how to become the ultimate architect. And while you're at it, download the free guide on why tech skills aren't enough. Because by doing so, you'll be head and shoulders above everybody else, and your career will rise beyond your wildest dreams. Take care, everyone.